Skyscrapers stand tall as symbols of innovation and ambition. What if I told you some of the world's most ambitious projects turned into some of the biggest flops? Well, that's exactly what we're breaking down today. From highways that go nowhere to towers that crumble before they even open, we're uncovering the 16 craziest construction disasters that will blow your mind. And not in a good way. Golden Flower Building demolished. Have you ever wondered what it takes to bring down a skyscraper? Back in November 2015, Xi'an City, China, witnessed an unforgettable event when the Golden Flower Building, a massive structure standing 118 meters tall, came crashing down. Can you imagine? It was the tallest building ever demolished in the country. The story of this tower is fascinating. Built in 1996, the high-rise was supposed to be a bustling hub, but it ended up sitting empty for years. Why didn't anyone use it? Despite being owned by the Guanghua pharmaceutical factory, efforts to remodel the building were just too expensive. Eventually, the decision was made: tear it down and start fresh. What would you have done? Here's where it gets really exciting. China brought in the experts, the Pengcheng Explosion Company, to handle the job. Their plan? Dig a trench 13 feet deep around the building to control the blast. Doesn't that sound like something straight out of a movie? Armed with 1.4 tons of dynamite and 12,000 detonators, they were ready. And when the explosives went off, the entire skyscraper collapsed in moments. Boom, gone. But the drama didn't stop there. A massive cleanup, of course. It took over 70 days to remove the enormous piles of debris, some as high as 66 feet. Can you picture that? Once the site was finally cleared, something new began to take shape. A fresh commercial complex started rising, promising modern retail spaces and homes. It's like the end of one story made way for an even better one. When it comes to the worst mistakes in China's tallest buildings, this image is enough to make anyone's heart race. A sky bridge, meant to symbolize modern engineering, reduced to rubble and chaos. Imagine being nearby when something designed to inspire awe instead crumbles in disaster. Whether it's rushed construction, poor planning, or ignoring safety measures, mistakes like these serve as a chilling reminder of how ambition can go horribly wrong. Could this be a warning sign for the future of skyscrapers? Lotus Riverside disaster. Buying a home is supposed to bring peace of mind, right? But for those who invested in the Lotus Riverside project in Shanghai, it turned into a nightmare they'll never forget. On June 27, 2009, something unbelievable happened. One of the 11 newly constructed 13-story apartment buildings toppled over entirely. Yes, the entire building fell on its side, still shockingly intact. Can you imagine the horror of seeing a brand new apartment block lying flat like a domino? Thankfully, no one had moved in yet, but tragically, a worker inside the building retrieving his tools lost his life. What could have caused such a disaster? It turns out it was a massive mistake in construction planning. To build an underground garage on the south side of the block, workers dug a huge pit and then piled the excavated dirt on the north side. This shifted the balance, destabilizing the soil under the building. The pressure was just too much. The concrete foundation gave way and down it went. Would you ever trust a developer again after seeing something like that? Surprisingly, the other 10 apartment buildings remained standing, but the collapse left the 400 prospective homeowners terrified. They immediately demanded their money back. Who could blame them? The developers faced nearly $5 million in damages and cleanup costs. Do you think this was enough to make up for such a huge failure? This disaster wasn't just costly, it served as a powerful lesson about the importance of proper engineering and planning. Even the most ambitious projects can come crashing down if corners are cut. Hawaii's controversial road, picture this. Hawaii, with its jaw-dropping beaches, lush rainforests and postcard-perfect sunsets, feels like paradise on Earth, right? But hidden among all that beauty lies a highway with a history that's anything but peaceful. The infamous H3. This road is like the drama queen of highways, stirring up controversy and tension like no other. Let me break it down for you. First off, did you know Hawaii has an interstate highway? Yeah, doesn't that sound odd? Hawaii is thousands of miles away from any other state, so how is it interstate? Kind of funny when you think about it. Anyway, the H3 is a 15-mile stretch of road connecting downtown Honolulu to the Marine Corps Base Hawaii. But it came with a price tag, and not just the $1.3 billion won. Now, let's rewind to the 1960s when this whole thing was greenlit. Sounds simple, right? Nope. The planned route sparked outrage because it cut through sacred Hawaiian burial grounds and ancient trees. Can you imagine how the locals felt? Sacred sites bulldozed in the name of progress. It's heartbreaking. Even with protests and fierce opposition, construction pushed forward in 1989. And when it finally opened in 1997, people were left wondering, was it worth it? Here's the kicker. Locals nicknamed it the Highway to Hell. Some even believe it's cursed by the spirits disturbed during construction. Spooky, right? And it doesn't help that it's barely used. For all the fuss and the $80 million spent per mile, the highway mostly just sits there, underused and overhyped. Forest City, Malaysia's $100 billion ghost town. Ever heard of a place that was supposed to be the city of the future, but ended up as a nearly empty shell? That's the story of Forest City in Malaysia. A project that started with big dreams, but has become one of the world's most expensive failures. Back in 2006, Malaysia introduced the Forest City project with a vision to build a luxurious, eco-friendly city spread across 4 artificial islands in Johor. Think futuristic towers covered in greenery, roads without cars, and smart apartments designed to make life seamless. Sounds like a dream, right? Fast forward to today, and the reality couldn't be more different. By 2019, only 15,000 units had been sold, nowhere near the goal of 700,000. Even worse, only about 500 people actually live there. Can you imagine living in a city built for hundreds of thousands, yet finding yourself surrounded by no one? It's no wonder people are calling it a ghost town. So what went wrong? A lot, actually. The project initially targeted wealthy buyers from China, but in 2017, the Chinese government put a $50,000 yearly limit on how much its citizens could spend on foreign properties. That was a major blow to sales. Then came the COVID-19 pandemic and a political crisis in Malaysia, both of which made the situation even worse. And let's talk about affordability. The most basic apartments in Forest City are priced at $100,000. For context, the average Malaysian makes about $1,000 a year. Do the math. Most locals could never afford to live there. How do you feel about cities like this being built for the wealthy, while regular people are completely priced out? To make matters worse, the project has taken a toll on the environment. Forest City's construction caused irreversible damage to nearby protected wetlands, undermining its original promise of sustainability. Isn't it ironic that a project named Forest City ended up harming nature instead of helping it? Now here's the kicker. The development has cost a staggering $100 billion so far. For that price, you'd expect a bustling urban paradise. Instead, the area is eerily quiet, with only plastic animals adding to its strange, haunting vibe. The implosion of Landmark Tower. Ever seen a skyscraper with a story? Fort Worth, Texas, once had a true icon in the Landmark Tower. Standing tall at 380 feet, it wasn't just the tallest building in the city when it opened in 1957. It also had a jaw-dropping feature. Can you guess what it was? A massive, revolving digital clock sat at the top, making it a one-of-a-kind sight and a proud symbol of the city. For years, this skyscraper thrived as a bustling hub, with every corner of it buzzing with activity. But here's the thing. No building can stay at the top forever. After about 30 years of success, the Landmark Tower started to see its shine fade. By the year 2000, it was completely abandoned. And then, to make things worse, a tornado ripped through and caused heavy damage. What would you do if something like that happened in your city? By 2006, the decision was clear. Landmark Tower had to go. Imagine the planning it takes to bring down a building that big. Midwest Wrecking Company stepped in, evacuating 15 blocks around the site for safety. Why such a big perimeter? Because they used over 360 pounds of explosives to bring the tower down. In just a few minutes, the skyscraper that once defined Fort Worth's skyline was reduced to rubble. But the story didn't end there. By 2016, the area was cleared and a new parking garage took its place. Doesn't it feel bittersweet? A piece of history gone, but making way for something new. Arena da Amazonia, Brazil's $300 million mistake. Picture this. Deep in the lush green heart of the Amazon rainforest, there's a massive state-of-the-art soccer stadium, Arena da Amazonia. Sounds cool, right? Well, not exactly. It's actually one of the most puzzling sports venues ever built. Let me tell you why. First off, we all know soccer is huge. It's the world's favorite sport, with over 3.5 billion fans. So when Brazil hosted the 2014 World Cup, they wanted to go big, show off, and leave the world in awe. But when they built this stadium in Manaus, a remote city in the middle of the Amazon jungle, people couldn't help but ask, why here? Here's the thing, Manaus isn't just remote. There are no roads connecting it to the coast. Let that sink in. Every single construction material had to be shipped up the Amazon River, driving the costs sky high. Guess how much the stadium cost? A jaw-dropping $300 million. Do you think it was worth it? Spoiler, probably not, and it only gets crazier. The heat and humidity of the rainforest weren't exactly ideal for keeping a soccer field green. The grass literally died, turning brown and patchy. So what did they do? They painted it green. Yes, you heard that right. They painted the grass for a World Cup stadium. How's that for a quick fix? Now let's talk about what happens after the big party. The stadium was built to hold 44,000 fans, but the local soccer team, Nacional, plays in Brazil's 5th tier. Their games rarely bring in more than 3,000 fans, barely enough to fill a tiny corner of the stadium. Other than a few Christian concerts here and there, the stadium is mostly empty. It's a ghost town. Do you think this was just bad planning? Or maybe they were aiming for something grand without thinking about the long term? Either way, the Arena da Amazonia has become a $300 million symbol of how ambition can sometimes lead to, well, poor choices. Demolition of department store. Did you know Detroit once had the tallest department store in the world? J.L. Hudson's department store wasn't just a shopping spot. It was a towering icon. Built in 1911, this massive building stood an impressive 134 meters tall, housing everything from retail stores to office spaces. Can you imagine a single building being the go-to place for both shopping and business back in the day? For nearly 80 years, Hudson's was a symbol of Detroit's vibrant downtown. But like many landmarks, its glory days came to an end. By 1998, the decision was made to bring it down, and let me tell you, the demolition was nothing short of a spectacle. Around 20,000 people gathered to watch the dramatic implosion. Have you ever seen something like that in person? The blast was so powerful, it shook more than just the building. It shattered windows in nearby abandoned stores and even caused damage to the Detroit People Mover, the city's elevated train system. Can you imagine the kind of force it takes to pull off something like that? But here's the exciting part. The story didn't end with the rubble. In place of the historic store, Detroit has been working on a brand new skyscraper set to reach 912 feet. It's expected to open as a symbol of the city's comeback and growth. The rise and fall of Ocean Tower. Who would have guessed a lavish condo could crumble into chaos? That's exactly what happened on South Padre Island, Texas, with the ill-fated Ocean Tower. Not far from SpaceX's Starship facility, this towering structure was supposed to be the ultimate in luxury living. At 375 feet tall, it promised high-end amenities like a swimming pool, gym, and spa. Sounds like a dream, right? Well, that dream quickly turned into a nightmare. Just 2 years into construction, things started to go horribly wrong. Cracks appeared in the support columns, and engineers found out the building's base had sunk by nearly 16 inches. Can you imagine the panic? The once sturdy tower was now leaning dangerously, earning it the nickname the Leaning Tower of South Padre. Engineers tried to figure out a way to save it, but the fix was way too expensive and just not practical. What would you do in that situation? By December 2009, the decision was made. Ocean Tower had to come down, and when it did, it made history. Controlled Demolition Inc. took on the challenge. using explosives to bring down what was then the largest concrete structure ever demolished. The entire island was evacuated for safety, and the park nearby was shut down for the day. But that didn't stop curious locals and tourists from gathering in nearby hotels and restaurants to watch the show. Can you picture the excitement as the $75 million tower collapsed into rubble in just seconds? AFE term tower destruction. Can you believe Europe once brought down its tallest building using explosives? Back in 2014, the AFE term tower in Frankfurt, Germany, met its dramatic end. At 116 meters tall, this giant was originally part of Goethe University's campus, serving as a hub for students and academics. But here's where it gets interesting. What was supposed to be a slow, piece-by-piece dismantling took a surprising turn. Can you guess why? Residents weren't happy with the painstakingly slow process and raised enough complaints to push for a quicker solution. The result? A bold plan to bring the tower down with explosives. Naturally, this decision grabbed everyone's attention. Imagine the buzz. It's not every day you see a skyscraper come crashing down. When the big day arrived, over 30,000 spectators showed up to watch. Can you picture the excitement in the crowd? The demolition started with a powerful blast that shook the ground, followed by two precisely timed explosions on the 5th and 17th floors. These blasts separated the building's core, causing the tower to collapse in two directions, one half falling south, the other north. It was over in seconds, leaving behind nothing but a massive cloud of dust and a lot of memories. The demolition marked the end of an era for Goethe University's campus. But what replaced it might surprise you. Instead of a new academic building, the site became home to 140 West, a sleek residential and hotel tower with luxury apartments and hotel rooms. How do you feel about turning an iconic university landmark into high-end real estate? Would you rather see it rebuilt for education or modern luxury? The day Westerholt's giant fell. What if you were there to see a towering 337-meter chimney fall in moments? That's exactly what happened in Westerholt, Germany, during one of the most impressive demolitions ever recorded. This wasn't just any chimney. It was the tallest structure of its kind ever brought down by controlled demolition. Isn't that wild? The story starts back in 1981, when this massive chimney was built as part of a power station. For decades, it stood tall, but by 2005, the power station was decommissioned. A year later, the decision was made. It was time to take it down. How do you even plan to safely demolish something that tall? The demolition team had it all figured out. They planned two explosions, one at the base and another midway up the structure. But here's the funny part. So many people showed up to watch the event that it caused a delay. Imagine thousands of spectators all eagerly waiting with cameras ready. When the explosions finally went off, it was pure spectacle. The towering chimney collapsed in moments, sending dust and debris flying as it marked the end of Westerholt's industrial past. What do you think it would have felt like to witness such a powerful moment? This demolition wasn't just about bringing down a structure. It was about closing a chapter in the area's history. Monument that's still waiting to be finished. Imagine standing in the heart of Custer County, South Dakota, staring up at a monument that's been decades in the making. A tribute that carries ambition, controversy, and a dream that feels frozen in time. This is the Crazy Horse Memorial, a project that began in 1939 as a way to honor the legendary Lakota war hero Crazy Horse. But here's the kicker. It's still not done. Have you ever heard of a tribute taking longer than a lifetime to complete? That's exactly what happened here. Crazy Horse, a fearless leader, fought to protect his people and their lands from the US government's relentless expansion. Though tragically killed in 1877, his spirit and story inspired Lakota Chief Henry Standing Bear to commission a monument in his honor. And who did he turn to for such a grand vision? Korczak Ziolkowski is a Polish-American sculptor known for his work on Mount Rushmore. The plan was audacious. This statue would be massive, towering at 641 feet long and 563 feet high, making it even larger than the mountain it's carved into, Thunderhead Mountain. Sounds impressive, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Even after more than 80 years, only Crazy Horse's face is complete. That milestone, finished in 1998, came 50 years after construction started. Since then, progress has crawled at a snail's pace. Doesn't it make you wonder, what's taking so long? Despite millions of dollars pouring in through donations and tourism, the monument remains far from finished. And here's where the story takes a sharp turn. Thunderhead Mountain, where this tribute is being carved, was once a sacred burial site for the Lakota people. Some even question whether this monument has lost its purpose. What started as a tribute to a hero has been criticized as a money-driven project, with its original meaning overshadowed by controversy. The end of Mina Plaza. Did you know one of the world's tallest buildings to ever be demolished wasn't even finished? That's the story of Mina Plaza in Abu Dhabi. This complex, made up of 4 massive towers, was supposed to stand as a symbol of modern luxury, with a height of 165 meters. Construction kicked off in 2007, but by 2012, things took a dramatic turn. A dispute between the owners brought everything to a grinding halt. What do you think it's like to see a massive project like this abandoned mid-construction? Plans to restart the work in 2014 fizzled out due to financial issues, leaving the towers incomplete and empty. By 2020, Abu Dhabi decided enough was enough. The unfinished towers had become an eyesore, and the government had bigger plans for the area. The site, part of the Mina Zayed Port redevelopment project, needed a fresh start. But how do you safely bring down 4 towering structures like that? The demolition team had their work cut out for them. Using 13,000 pounds of plastic explosives, they carried out a meticulously planned series of blasts. Can you imagine the precision it takes to ensure safety while bringing down buildings that tall? The first 3 towers collapsed in unison, and just 10 seconds later, the 4th came down, leaving behind nothing but rubble. The demolition wasn't just about removing an abandoned structure, it symbolized the end of a troubled chapter for Mina Plaza and opened the door for a fresh start in the heart of Abu Dhabi. Have you ever wondered what happens to million-dollar projects like this when they fail? Would you consider it a waste or just part of the risks in creating something ambitious? Unused marvel of the HZMB Bridge. What would you think about a bridge that's supposed to revolutionize travel but ends up barely being used? That's the story of the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge, HZMB, a jaw-dropping engineering marvel that spans over 34 miles, making it the longest sea-crossing bridge in the world. Sounds amazing, right? But here's the kicker. Despite its mind-blowing design and promise of cutting a 4-hour trip down to just 30 minutes, hardly anyone uses it. First, let's talk numbers. This bridge cost a staggering $8.8 billion to build, and on paper, it should have been a game-changer for connecting Hong Kong, Zhuhai, and Macau, 3 of the busiest cities on the planet. But there's a catch. To actually drive on it, you need a special permit. And not just any permit. It's restricted to a tiny group of people, like top investors, politicians, and certain academics. Oh, and your car also has to be registered in all 3 cities. Makes you wonder, doesn't it? Why build such an ambitious bridge if regular folks can't use it? And it doesn't stop there. Only 400 permits are issued each day, making it feel like the bridge was designed for exclusivity, not accessibility. Some say the tight restrictions are meant to ease Hong Kong's overcrowding issues, but it raises a bigger question. Was this massive project really built for the people? Or was it more about making a statement? Fall of China's ghost towers. For 7 years, a group of towering structures stood incomplete in a Chinese city. Then, in less than a minute, they were reduced to ruins. These buildings were part of China's ambitious push for urban expansion, a strategy that led to what many called empty cities across the country. But how did this situation arise? Local authorities, eager to boost local economies, sold land and initiated massive construction projects. Developers, chasing rising real estate prices, borrowed heavily to fund their ventures. But when the market didn't cooperate, these skyscrapers were abandoned, becoming silent witnesses to unfulfilled dreams. A different company took over the original builder's operations in November 2020, along with a hefty $3.6 million debt. After inspecting the unfinished buildings, significant structural flaws were identified. This led to the decision to demolish them, making room for smaller, more practical apartment complexes. But have you ever wondered what it takes to bring down such massive structures? On August 27th, a large-scale demolition operation took place. Workers strategically placed 4.6 metric tons of explosives at approximately 85,000 points throughout the buildings. Over 5,300 residents were temporarily relocated, each receiving compensation of about $23, a sum that raises questions about fairness. When the explosions were triggered, the neighborhood disappeared under a thick cloud of dust, captured live on camera. To manage the aftermath, water cannons sprayed into the air to minimize airborne debris. This dramatic event wasn't just about tearing down buildings, but also paving the way for a new beginning. Wonderland, a dream left in ruins. In Chenzhuang Village, Nankou Town, Beijing, a grand vision once promised to transform the landscape. Wonderland, an ambitious amusement park project, was set to become the largest in Asia, sprawling over 120 acres. But what happened to this dream? Why did it crumble before it could even take shape? Proposed by the Thailand-based developer Rainwood Group, construction began with high hopes in the 1990s. By 1998, financial disputes with local authorities brought everything to a standstill. A renewed attempt to resume the project in 2008 also failed, leaving the site in limbo for years. What remained was a haunting scene, a partially constructed castle-like structure and medieval-themed buildings that stood as remnants of unfulfilled aspirations. Over time, local farmers reclaimed the land, turning the abandoned grounds into fields for their crops. Interestingly, some visitors reported seeing parking attendants at the site, possibly catering to the curious onlookers who came to explore this unusual spectacle. The unfinished park became a symbol of broader concerns, with many pointing to it as evidence of a potential property bubble in China. Was Wonderland just one of many overly ambitious projects that couldn't sustain the weight of financial or bureaucratic challenges? In May 2013, the incomplete structures were demolished, wiping out any chance of the park's completion. The site, once a symbol of grand ambition, faded into history as a lesson in the risks of large-scale developments. Brighton Point Power Station pulling down. Have you ever heard of a power plant demolition turning into a record-breaking spectacle? That's exactly what happened in Somerset, Massachusetts, with the Brighton Point Power Station. This coal plant, which powered up back in the 1960s, had been a part of the landscape for decades. But by May 2017, its days of producing energy were over. What do you think happens to a massive structure like that when it's no longer in use? In 2019, the owners decided it was time to bring down the plant's two gigantic cooling towers. And here's the kicker. These towers weren't just tall, they were record-breaking. At 500 feet high, they became the tallest cooling towers ever demolished, beating out the previous record set by the Trojan nuclear plant in 2006. Can you imagine standing there, watching towers that size crumble to the ground? Word spread quickly, and crowds poured in from across New England to witness the big event. The explosion was nothing short of jaw-dropping as the towering structures collapsed, creating a cloud of dust and an unforgettable moment for everyone watching. Would you have been there in person or caught it online later? But the drama didn't end with the implosion. In the months that followed, crews worked to dismantle the rest of the plant, and things got even more intense. Fires broke out in the scrap metal piles left behind, adding an extra layer of chaos to an already wild process. Talk about a demolition that didn't go quietly. Which one blew your mind? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.